It's not online. And so I always like to ensure you at least leave here knowing one single thing you didn't know before you came in here. So when each panelist introduces themselves, I'm going to ask them to answer what's a fun fact about each one of you we can't find out on Google. So you'll at least know one thing leaving here that you never knew about them. So I'm going to let Lori Siegel, who's the senior tech reporter for CNN, kick off the conversation, and you guys will answer your fun facts. But thank you for coming, and thank you guys for your patience.
Thank you guys. So I do my fun fact now. I guess that's okay. I got my start as a journalist. This is gonna date me a little bit because normally you'd be able to look on the internet, but you can't find this out, thankfully. My first assignment as a journalist, I was in college, and it was for Glamour, and I went undercover at a purity ball, which is where women go to devote their virginity to their fathers. And I brought my dad along and signed a pledge, and that was my first assignment. And it hit the newsstands, and I'm so grateful that Glamour had not figured out digital, and it is no lie, you can't find it. Don't go look. I know you guys are tech savvy. Do not go try to find that. So that's my fun fact. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
Hey everyone, I'm Christina Davignon. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Ringly, and we make smart jewelry and accessories. So we're both wearing one right now. So this beautiful bracelet is connected to my phone, and it will vibrate and show a little light when I'm getting different notifications. And you can set it up however you want. So you can have it vibrate, 3 times flash blue when your meeting is coming up to let you know that you need to go. It can tell you when your Uber car is arriving. It can tell you when you're getting a phone call and and a text. And I'm really interested in new ways of interacting with yourselves and your environment without necessarily having to look at a screen. And so we developed the product mostly because I was so frustrated as a woman. We always have to have our phones out. And the alternative is to keep it tucked away in our purses, but then there's always this fear that you might miss something. So I created this product as a way to get the most relevant information sent to me, without it being distracting to what I was doing. And along with the disrupt theme, a little fun fact about me, my dad had a tech startup back in the 90s, and so when all of the other kids at school were going out and playing sports and doing stuff, I would go home and I would go down into the basement and I would literally hack on things, and I used to make all my friends fake IDs. So those hacks you won't find out there.
I'm Carly Chaikin. I play Darlene on Mr. Robot. I'm also a painter. This is a little shameless promotion here. A painting I did of the F Society mask that Rachel so graciously printed on a bunch of her products. And fun fact about me, I was a competitive gymnast from when I was 2 until I was 12. So there you go.
Great. Hi, I'm Rashmi Sajani. I'm the CEO and founder of Girls Who Code. Girls Who Code is a national nonprofit. We're actually a movement that's seeking to close the gender gap in computer science and tech, and hopefully get more real life Carlies who are out there building products and changing the world. We taught 20 girls in 2012. One of our students, Helen, where are you? She was in our second program, so she's a rising junior at Brown right now, working at Foursquare. Let's give her a big round of applause. Awesome. And this year we're going to reach 40,000 girls in all 50 states. And to put that number in context, only 10,000 women graduated in computer science last year. Wow. So the problem is so bad that we're able to make real change pretty fast. And so I believe that we can really close the gender gap soon. Fun fact about me, I hate raisins. Nothing to do with technology. But it's funny because I have a 16-month-old son who I'm trying to mold into a mini me. And he hates textures too on food, so I think he gets it from me.
Interesting. Cool. And out of curiosity, are you guys in tech? How many of you guys are in tech or entrepreneurial? Okay. And you like Mr. Robot, so this is a fabulous crowd. I'm very happy about this. I want to start with you, Reshma, because we're talking a lot about changing the ratio, getting more women in tech. And this has become like a very trendy topic. I don't know how much work has really been done, but this is a very trendy topic now. But you kind of noticed this years and years ago when you started Girls Who Code. So what was the catalyst to starting Girls Who Code and seeing that problem?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say, like, I'm not a coder, so I didn't major in computer science. So it wasn't because I was, hacking in my father's basement, when I was, 10 years old. I was definitely one of those girls that was terrified of math and science growing up. I thought that I just wasn't good at it, and so anything that was technical, anything that was math or science related, I just ran away from it. And in 2010, I ran for Congress against a woman who had been there for 18 years because I thought that was a great idea. I did not win, but the best thing that ever happened to me was that failure, because I ended up visiting a lot of schools as a congressional candidate, and I saw the gender divide. And I was like, this is crazy. We were just talking about this, right? At a time where, you name your favorite product, whether it's, Snapchat or Twitter or Facebook or, Instagram. The only thing that all these companies have in common is that they're run by a white male CEO with a tech team that's almost all male, where their consumer base is oftentimes 80% female. Like, it didn't make sense, and I'm sick of it, right? I'm tired of going past, newsstand after newsstand, looking at the top 100 most powerful people list, and it being a bunch of dudes. And so I felt like, even though I didn't come at it from my industry experience, I'm a feminist with a capital F. I don't want to live in a world that's run by men. I don't think the men in this room do either. And so I wanted to do something about it. And so I started an organization.
And probably,
Amen.
Yeah. Right? Probably for you, kind of being on the outside of like the tech world and just really looking in and embodying this role that's almost become a role model for so many women who need kind of this female hero coder. And I mean, those who watch Mr. Robot, it's such a badass character. It's such a cool character. How did you do the research? I mean, how did you learn to kind of embody this idea of the female coder? And did you learn anything about women in tech in the process?
What's so interesting is the idea that I was playing a woman in the tech world who's a hacker never crossed my mind. I was just playing a hacker. And then all of a sudden, as we started doing more panels, everyone would be like, how does it feel to be a woman in this position? And I feel like everyone was acting like I was playing like a unicorn that spoke English all of a sudden. And it never crossed my mind, because I was like, of course there are women in tech. Of course there are women that hack. Why is this so crazy to people? But apparently it is. So to be able to be able to be, a woman playing a hacker and fill that position that I guess is clearly missing is, I couldn't be luckier, and to have opportunities to be like on a panel like this and meet, two brilliantly amazing women like this. This will keep happening, just so you guys know. Ignore it.
It's not like you don't have to stop talking.
I know.
It's like not a rap. We gotta wrap.
But yeah, I definitely, hacking and all that stuff was never in the forefront of my mind. So I really wanted to take this opportunity to learn about it and how to do it. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna learn how to hack and code, and got, hacking books, and then was like, okay, never mind. This is a lot harder than I thought. Like, I'd have a better chance learning German. But I have been able to, become a lot more knowledgeable about that world and the hacking world and the tech world, and just, I've gained so much respect for people that can code and that do, all that. And I would love, I asked if I could come there.
You're coming. Yep.
I would absolutely love to learn how to do that. I think it's so cool. And how much cooler would I be if I was like, yeah, and I can hack you all?
Right. I mean, I think how much cooler could all of us be if we
Yeah.
had the coding skills, right? I mean, when you found out, you get the call, you got the role, you are going to be this hacker. What's like the first thing you did to research, Darlene?
I bought Hacking for Dummies, and because first I bought this other hacking book and was like, maybe I should start with hacking for dummies because this is too much. But you know, we had this amazing seminar led by this guy who's like a crazy hacker who really talked about, you know, and this happened before the Sony hack and all of that too. And who talked about hacking and the mindset of a hacker and what they're capable of. And I watched a lot of documentaries on Anonymous and just different hacking groups and found out more information about that.
And Christina, when we talk about kind of changing the game, changing the ratio a bit, you're doing it in a different way. You're doing it through wearables, which, looking at some of your past interviews, almost seems like wearables, the state we're in, they're like almost kind of sexist. They're kind of for dudes. So you wanted to change that, right?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I wanted to build something that I would get excited about wearing, and when I looked at, you know, wearables as they stood when I started the company, I noticed that they were very geeky, gadgety, and they claimed to be unisex, but, you know, their solution for targeting women was just, let's make a pink version, let's make a rose gold version, let's put a like nice flower band on it or something. And I got really frustrated. I was like, I wouldn't get excited about wearing that. So I wanted to create something for women where the tech was essentially invisible. And that's how it got started. And that, you know, when we launched, we got a lot of attention for being the first wearable to really target women in the space.
I mean, how do you go from having an idea as someone who's an idea person, and you have, you know, you want to do something, you see a problem, but actually going and raising money and going and building out a whole company based on this? What did you do? What was the change that made you actually go ahead and do this?
Yeah, it was interesting. Before I founded Ringly, I was at a machine learning startup called Hunch, and that company was acquired by eBay, and I loved the startup environment. I loved, you know, small teams moving really quickly, so I always knew I wanted to do my own thing. And then I had the idea for Ringly, and I said, this is it, because I want this product so badly. And I guess I didn't know how hard it was, not because I'm a woman, but I think because my product is gendered and it's targeting women. A lot of the VCs we were pitching to were men. And so it was a little bit harder trying to sell a product that's not for them to them.
Got it. And when we talk about kind of challenges, and we can expand on that, I mean, we're all kind of in different industries. I would just love to know, like, what are the biggest barriers you face in your industry as a woman? How do you kind of fight through that?
My whole life is about women and girls, so I don't think I face barriers because I'm a woman. I think I'm trying to crash down barriers for women. And you know, I think that one of the things we talk about at Girls Who Go, which is, you know, it's great to be here talking about this topic, is like a lot of, you know, the reason why, when you think about how we came to this place where it's I understand why you had that position. Like, of course, I mean, like, what's so big about being a female engineer? Because, like, what is so big about being a female engineer? But the thing is that, you know, in the 80s, almost half of all computer scientists were women, and today that number is less than 18%. And culture has had a huge role in really pushing women and girls out of this field. So, you know, in the 80s, essentially, the personal computer came out. And I was just did a town hall with Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter and Square, last week, and he says, you know, my parents bought me a computer when I was 12 years old. I wanted to take it apart, and boom, I was like, you know, trying to figure out traffic in St. Louis, and that helped me become a technologist. Well, that computer was mostly targeted as a toy for boys, and many girls didn't have that transformational experience. Or from a culture perspective, you know, in the 80s, you saw this rise of, like, the programmer is like a dude in a hoodie, you know, drinking a Red Bull, sitting in a basement somewhere. And from Weird Science to Revenge of the Nerds to War Games to Silicon Valley and HBO, a woman disappeared from that place, in that space, to be a technologist. And so for many girls, they feel like this is just not for them, and they can't do it, and they're not good at it, and they're not smart. So what we do at Girls Who Code, besides, you know, actually teach girls how to computer program, is like we're trying to disrupt culture. And that's really, really, really hard because, you know, excuse my language, but like the shit we do to girls and boys is really messed up. The way that we, at such a young age, teach them how to be and how to behave. You know, I did a TED Talk about this, and it's like, from such a young age, we teach our girls to, like, you know, smile pretty and play it safe, and like don't get your dirty dress or your dress dirty, and to get all A's and to be perfect. And we teach our boys to just, jump off the monkey bars, and it has real consequences for how we behave when we're adults.
I think, she's talking about a TED Talk she did where you talk about the bravery deficit, which I thought was such an interesting way of putting it, and even looking at it personally. Explain a little bit more what the bravery deficit, explain a little bit more about it and how you saw the difference between women coming into code and men who are learning how to code.
Yeah, so, in all of our programs at Girls Who Code, during the first week, we're teaching girls to computer program, and many of them are like Carly, never coded before, often don't have, a computer at home or in school, and they've assumed that this is freaking hard to do, right? And impossible for them unless they're like, a genius. And so right away they're feeling, they're feeling nervous about it. And so our teachers would tell us, like, when the girls are first learning how to code, a student would call the teacher over and she'd say, I don't know what code to write. And the teacher would then look at the screen and she'd see a blank text editor. And so if she didn't know any better, she'd think that her student just spent the past 20 minutes just, staring at the screen. But if she pressed undo a few times, she saw that her student wrote code and then deleted it. So instead of showing the progress that she made in learning how to code, she'd rather show nothing at all. So this idea of like perfection or bust. And so what I think's happened for many of us is that, again, we're not comfortable with imperfection, whereas men are comfortable and energized by challenge and risk. So what happens is, as we get older, we only do the things in the careers that we're good at. So when I got that first B+ in chemistry, never took a math or science class again. Because in my head, it was black or white. You were either good at something or you were bad at something. And so it was safer and better to just do the things that I was good at because I didn't want to get rejected and I didn't want to fail. Whereas men are not the same way. And so they're been raised and taught how to be brave. And so my argument is that the bravery deficit is why there's so much underrepresentation in fields across the board, from politics to technology to medicine to law, because we've been taught to be averse to risk.
And Carly, I wonder, there's so much pressure, right, going into a role and being a Hollywood actress and being, in front of everybody. I wonder if that ever applies to you too. I'm sure as females it applies. I know it applies to me. I know it applies to a lot of folks in the industry. Do you, were you ever scared that you would fail, or, did it ever prevent you from really trying to go get the role, or do you have to battle that voice in your head on a constant basis?
What's interesting is I think so much of it is about how you're raised also. And I think, parents, obviously I'm not a parent, but like pass on a lot of their insecurities or strengths or, whatever it is. And I think it becomes like a generational thing of if you grow up as a woman feeling that way, that's something that your kids are gonna probably naturally inherit. And I've been so lucky to grow up with a mom who has been like, you can do whatever the fuck you want. And when I said I wanted to be an actress, she was like, great, why not you? And so for me, I've and I think one of the reasons why I'm like, why is that being a female doing that's such a big deal, is because I grew up I remember like my mom loves the story when I was in elementary school and, someone said like, you run like a girl, and I got into a huge fight where I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I run great. And, was always that kid that was like, no, like, I'm not gonna stand, like, why do we need to stand in this line when the boys stand in that line? And was really raised to have my own mind and to be brave and, and not ever feel like I'm less than a man or anything like that. And so, I've been so blessed to be raised that way. And of course I hope to, raise my kids that way. And I know that you sure as hell will. And I think that's, where it starts is about being able to be the person that does feel like I can do whatever I want to do, and being able to, pass it along to other girls and to friends, and to, create the strength in women from like a personal level of just the trickle effect. And so, you know, I've not to like, I haven't felt like that. And I'm so lucky that I haven't, because I think that like you know, I'm so one of those girls that like, I'm probably better than most of the boys. But just equal opportunist. I've never felt like being a female should stop me in any way. You know, and I don't want to like make anyone feel isolated in that way of not feeling like I can relate to them or something, but of just, you know, being able to be that voice that's like, of course any woman can do anything that they want to do. And I think, you know, I've been lucky to have that instilled in me, and I hope that I feel like this always happens at like a good, like powerful moment. You know, that I can encourage other girls to feel the same way, and, you know, if their parents haven't taught them that, to be able to hear that from someone else or another place of like, oh, you're right, like I can do anything.
Yeah. How about in the tech world? Because you go into a lot of meetings and a lot of dinners and a lot of inside baseball events, and I'm assuming it's a lot of men. Do you ever specifically deal with this idea of kind of perfection versus bravery? I mean, is that something that ever hits home with you?
Well, it's funny. I think I borrow like a little bit of both. So I do feel like I can do everything, and that's not holding me back. But then there is just a little bit in my personality that is kind of perfectionist about things. So I have great mentors, both men and women, but some of my investors will say sometimes, like when I present the numbers to them, they're like, Christina, this is great, but like, why aren't you showing, I'll give a good example. So we have our revenue, and then we just did a pre-order of our bracelet sales. He's like, why aren't you showing those bracelet sales in here? I'm like, well, they didn't ship yet, so I'm not counting them yet. And so he was like, no. When you pitch to investors, you show everything. You show that, like, you know, we made this much money this month, and like this is going to this. And even though that's not like the proper way of doing it, he's like, all of my other companies present it this way. And so I think it's a little bit of that, and like not being so perfectionist, because you know, like I don't want to do anything wrong, or I don't want to like present things that are false or whatnot. But the feedback I've gotten is a lot of other companies, like a lot of the male CEOs, they present it in such a way that's very different from how I present it.
You are pitching, for some background, Ringley has funding from Andreessen Horowitz. Like, these are the folks who've invested in Facebook, these big investors, and a lot of times, and a lot of these investors, I'm assuming, are men, because I know they're struggling to get female partners at some of these places. Does that ever change the way you go in and pitch your product, especially since your product is a product for women?
It's funny, the first thing I always have to say when I pitch the product is, if it's a guy, you're a guy, you keep your phone in your pocket. Women don't have pockets, or we don't tend to keep our phones in our pocket. And then they're like, oh, because if I don't say that, they won't get it at all. And then, then there's always like, oh, let me like bring this home to show my wife, or show like one of the female associates or something. And that's been an interesting dynamic too.
Take us to like the closed doors. You're about to pitch. Like, what's the craziest thing that's kind of happened, and the most surprising thing to you being an entrepreneur and now navigating yourself through this world?
Yeah, I mean, it's just so different when I pitch to men versus women, just because it's a product for women, and so women get really excited about it and they can relate to it, versus men, where I have to do a lot more education on market size and how women buy jewelry and how we don't like to wear the same thing every day, and why that's important.
So how, I guess this brings me to the next point, like how does that change, right? At what point do you get to go into a room and not have to explain to a bunch of dudes that women don't always put their phone in their pocket, or what, when does that change?
I honestly think it changes when there's more women in VC, because I do have some amazing VCs who are women, and pitching to them, they got it right away and invested in us right away. And I think we need more success stories in female entrepreneurs, so that those women can then go on and become VCs and kind of feed that funnel.
and Reshma, what do you think has to happen? Because you guys are established at this point, and you're kind of in the room having the conversations with a lot of people who want to make the change. But we were just kind of joking a little bit before this that we've been covering this for 4 years, and now it's trendy in Silicon Valley to talk about the need for women. But we're not seeing as much change. The numbers aren't changing that much. So how do we get the numbers to change?
Yeah, I mean, I believe it's about infiltration, right? You just got to put as many women into the pipeline. In our case, if you have not taken computer science in high school, you're unlikely to go to college and take it. And only 1 out of 10 American high schools offers computer science. Only 20,000 kids took the APCS exam. 4,000 girls took it. 3 states, no girls took it. So the educational problem from a policy perspective is ginormous, right? At a time where you have 600,000 jobs that are open in computer science and technology, where you can make twice that of any private sector job. So from our perspective, we run about, we have over 100 corporate partners. We build, classrooms and technology companies. They're depending on us to build this pipeline of talent. Because I would argue, right, having experience, at a tech company like you did is going to give you more confidence to go build your business. And when you build your business, you'll then hopefully sell it for a lot of money and then be a VC and give money away in golf or whatever they do, right? So you got to create, that journey where you can actually go and get there. So I think it begins with teaching as many girls to code as possible. I think going back to the point that I made earlier, it's and I know I had this. It's I was actually getting my hair blown out last week, and Jasmine was saying to me, look, I have this amazing salon idea, and she's like, I was like, you should totally do it. Sounds awesome. She's like, yeah, but I'm not sure about the accounting, and I don't know how to build my website, and right? And it's we need to know everything. And every piece of everything for us to then go out and start our company. And I think technology is such a huge part of everything that you do in that. So when you learn how to code, regardless of whether you want to be an artist and an actor, or a doctor or a technologist, it will just help you fill in the blanks and answer those questions and give you the confidence to create anything.
Great. And Carly, I almost called you Darlene. Oh my goodness! I'm
I would still respond.
do people on the street scream out Darlene to you? Do you, now that you know kind of the weight of this role, right? And it's funny, and I love how you went in being like, "What's the problem? I don't understand why this is an issue." But now that you've been on panels like this and you see that your character has kind of touched on something that's really universal and happening, do you feel a certain pressure with this role to kind of be this role model? I mean, how does this take you beyond Darlene into your real life?
I mean, I feel just honored to be able to be that role, especially not even realizing I was becoming that. And really fast when I was thinking about this, there are one instance that happened on the show where, and Sam, our creator, is the most incredible person in the entire world, but being a female, I had to swing a baseball bat, and he was like, do you know how to swing a baseball bat? And I was like, yes, I know how to swing a baseball bat, or use a drill or anything like that. And I swung it so hard, broke it because I used to play sports, but just the fact, there are those scenarios of oh, you're a girl, so you can't swing a baseball bat type thing. Just side note. Anyway, I feel incredibly honored to be in this role, and to be the voice and represent that. And I think if anyone should feel pressure, it's Sam, because I just do what he tells me to do. But one of the greatest things about acting and being on this show is being able to use that, notoriety, or use the amount of eyes that are on us for a good reason and for something of substance, and not just being entertained, but with the amount that our show has personally and emotionally affected people on such a deep level, whether it's feeling they're not alone and Elliot and they have someone that they can relate to, or being able to escape for an hour watching this, or feeling like they're a woman and want to be in the tech world, and here's a strong female that's doing this and that's super badass and isn't doubting herself, and you know, whose brother is coming to her, asking her to do a code, asking her to, you know, finish this hack. And so I hope in my career that I do get to play and be all these different things that are able to inspire women and everyone, and, you know, to be whatever they want to be, because I am so the biggest believer in, like, anybody in here can take over the world if they want, you know, and so I don't feel pressure to do that. I feel like so grateful that I get to do that.
What do you think it was about Mr. Robot? Obviously, I mean, it became a really, like, a cult favorite, right? People really love the show. What do you think it was about the show? What message in the show do you think is what people really relate to?
I think overall, in a big picture, it's honest. It's so honest, and I think people are, I know for me that, like, nothing is, like, truthful or honest in the world anymore, especially on TV. And it's real, and it talks, you know, it's so much about what's going on in today's world and in society and in technology. And, you know, it's not all white men. It's, you know, every single kind of person is in the show. We never successfully do a hack the first time. We always fail and have to figure out another way. You know, it's a great representation of the corporate world, of, you know, the 99% of people who want to make a difference and start a revolution. And, you know, season 2, really the consequences of that, because in most TV shows they'd start a revolution and everything would be great and they stuck it to the man. But it's all based in reality, and I think people really seeing someone dealing with social anxiety and dissociative identity disorder, whatever you want to characterize that as, has never been portrayed in a real and genuine way before. It's always been like, oh, this person crazy, or like whatever it is, and I just think that it's something real and honest that people can hold on to, and it's just also really visually pretty, and it's a good fucking story.
When we talk about honesty, you don't get to be the level of success that a lot of you guys are without, like, some pretty bad failures. There's some, like, pretty dramatic failures in general. I think failure is such a big part of success, and no one, even, I mean, in the media, we don't do a good job of this. You know, there's so many, you got all the people on the covers of the magazines celebrating the success, but with that comes sometimes incredible and embarrassing and hard failure. So, like, maybe we just make everyone feel good and talk about, like, when we failed. No pressure. Starting with you. I mean, has there ever just been a point where you really, like, put your eggs in the basket and then it just didn't work out? And if so, we can make it better by talking about what you learned from it. But let's talk failure.
Well, I think entrepreneurship for me has brought a lot of that to my attention, because as an entrepreneur, I mean, you fail all the time, you know, and I think one of the things I tell people is it's a roller coaster. Some days you're up here, and then the next day you could be way down here, because of those, like, small little failures. Like, you know, if somebody left the company, you think you fail, or if you know, you didn't have growth one month, you think you fail. And it's just being able to be okay with that and know that, you know, you can change this and you can bring it back up.
Give me a specific. You're sitting, when are you just sitting there being like, oh my goodness?
Well, when I first started the company, there was only 3 of us for a while, and we were in an incubator in San Francisco, moving back to New York, and one of our employees said, I'm not going to continue on. And I thought it was like the end of the world. I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And then, like, I spent so much time and attention, and I thought I failed. I was like, maybe I'm not a good boss, maybe I can't do this. And then I just, you know, kept going, and we ended up finding, you know, great, amazing people, and it was fine. And I didn't have to worry so much about that one thing. And I learned that, you know, even when you have something that goes wrong, you can just make it go back up and make it better.
How about you, Reshma? When we talk about failures, was there a moment you can look back? And I know you touched on some at the beginning. Is there a moment you could look at where you just thought the walls are caving in, or, you know, that it really kind of shaped you?
Well, I mean, I fail all the time. So, you know, I applied to law school 3 times before I got in. I've lost 2 public elections, large elections, Congress. I ran again. I keep losing elections. I ran for public advocate. I lost. When you lose an election, everybody knows, right? It's not like you can't hide it, right? It's enormously humiliating. Oftentimes it's left me broke, right? And for me, if you asked little Reshma when she was 11 years old, 12 years old, what she wanted to do, she would have told you that she wanted to serve. So not being elected was soul crushing. I recently applied for my community board for the education committee because, one would think that I know something about education and didn't get in, right? But, I print that out and I put it on my refrigerator, and I stare at it all the time because I think that, from failures and real failures, right? Ones that leave you, worse off than when you started. It's like the key of life is like not letting failure break you. Because I think for so long, and I think in some ways we protect our girls more from failures than we protect our boys. Like you can fail and it can break you, from anxiety to depression to never taking risks in your career. And so it's almost like learning how to fail is like exercising a muscle and like training this muscle every day. And so I put myself out there at least once a week. Whether it's asking for something that the likelihood of a no is very high, or just, so I'm constantly exercising the failure muscle.
What do you tell yourself? You lose that second election, right? It's hard,
Yeah.
it's public.
Sucks.
It sucks, it really
Yeah.
sucks. But there's something about you.
Yeah.
You just refuse.
No,
to
I have a routine. Like when I lose or I fail at something big, I drink margaritas for a week or a month, normally a month. I talk about it over and over and over again to my friends, to the point that they're sick about it, right? Why did it happen? What can I have done different? I can't believe this happened to me. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then I can move on. Do not look back. I do not talk about it. I do not obsess about it. I do not think about it. That's it. You have to have you have to almost have a plan of how you deal with failure. Because if not, it will break you. It can break you.
Carly, same question to you. And I mean, in a different field, but people look at you. You're a beautiful, successful Hollywood actress. There we go. So now I've buttered you up enough. So when did you fail? What can you look at? Is there a point you can look at that you just thought, wow, this really sucks. I'm really failing. And how'd you get out of that?
I mean, one, I love that we're talking about this right now because, and one of the things, Instagram, which I get so jealous of all these people's lives because they post these pictures of the best moments and create this whole album where you're like, Jesus, how is that your life? And, but people can look at mine and say that because we don't post those moments of when we fail or when we're sobbing on the floor or getting our heart broken or all those things. And so, I think it's also tainted the way we look at the world because all we're seeing is
good
photoshopped versions.
Yeah.
But with my job, failure is every other day. I was just the amount people see. I have had a very lucky and great career, but in a short amount of time. But between all those jobs, I can't even tell you how many auditions I've had that I haven't gotten, that I've wanted so bad, that I thought I was going to get, that I should have gotten, that, endless amounts of times. That one of the hardest things about being an actor is rejection is a constant. You are rejected more than you are accepted. And it's something that takes thick skin, and it's something that takes, I'm not a religious person, but I am spiritual and do believe that everything happens for a reason. And, my last show that I was on, called Suburgatory, we did 3 seasons, and it got canceled. And I remember, I was so upset because I loved it so much. I loved working on it, and was I'm never going to get another job as long as I live. No one's going to hire me. Was just devastated. And I knew, I was okay, this is happening, something is going to come along that I wouldn't have been able to do if I still had this, if I was still on the show. And, lo and behold, Mr. Robot came along, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if that show hadn't gotten canceled. And So for me, it's about like the mindset of going into it, of welcoming failure. You know, like you had said, you started doing what your Girls Who Code because of the election that you didn't end up getting. And I think, you know, there's so many blessings in disguise that come from that. But every freaking day I fail, or like stick my foot in my mouth, or don't get a job I want, or like say something stupid, or, you know, whatever it is. Like, and anybody who says they don't are liars. And how boring would life be if you didn't? And everything was just perfect all the time.
Is it harder now in this like Instagram filtered world where everyone looks like, people always even say to me like, oh, your life looks amazing on Facebook. I'm like, one day I like, it can be really tough and they're dealing with all this stuff, but we never really kind of put that foot forward. I mean, is it harder now in this world that we live in?
I literally have a 13-year-old niece who, if she doesn't get at least 100 likes, she deletes the memory.
Stop it.
No, it's crazy. Like, I mean, social media has really changed the way that we behave, act, feel,
And value ourselves.
That's right.
Can like any tech person figure that? We don't, but we also don't want like a depression after, or maybe we do. I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's changing. Like Snapchat, for example, is great because like things just go away, and it's more of these like instant moments where you can't make it look perfect. I mean, you can make it like fun and exciting and put little emojis everywhere, but you know, it's a little bit of a less perfect kind of window into that world. I mean, people still post like really exciting
I don't know.
things,
Living with my 13-year-old changed my life because she literally, because of Snapchat, and I guess it's hard to like click on a different picture if you want to respond. You have to almost respond authentically with a new. I mean, she'd get up at 6 a.m. and put her makeup on to the nines because she had to take 500 pictures by the end. I mean, could you imagine at 13 like living your?
No.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I feel like the pressure is ginormous.
What advice have you gotten that really impacted you that you could kind of share with a group of entrepreneurs, folks in tech, women and men? What advice is really impactful to you?
You know, again, to be comfortable with imperfection, right? To just really, really, really go out there and like, I think by being brave and like you're living a life of no regrets. Like you've tried everything, you've done everything, and it's like you can like, be 80 years old and you're like, I've tried, and I'm living an authentic life with no regrets. And I think in some ways for me, motherhood was freeing. Right? After you have a child, it's like your life is so crazy and such a mess that you're just like hands up, right? It doesn't, you're imperfect all the time.
Yeah. Do you still find, even at your level where you're taking meetings, like you're taking meetings every time I see something with like Girls Who Code, you guys don't even have to do promotion because you're meeting like really, really incredible female leaders all the time. Do you ever struggle with this idea of imposter syndrome, or I'm just kind of faking it, or I don't belong here?
I mean, we're the same. I don't code. I should be like in fear, right? To like stand here and someone's gonna ask me some complicated question about, computer science, and I won't be able to answer it. Absolutely. But again, I think that like, I've just learned, and maybe it's older age or whatever, I just let it all hang out. I am who I am, super authentic. You hear, what you see is what you get. And that's why I'm not trying to fake it. I'm not trying to be somebody I'm not. And I think that like makes you less stressful. I think so much of imposter syndrome is also trying to be somebody that someone else wants you to be. And I gave that up in my 20s.
How about you, Carly? What advice really impacted you?
I mean, like I said earlier, like the biggest thing that my mom said and that I would say is like, why not you? And of course there goes, well, because blah, 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 blah. And like, it's just all bullshit, like people look at my life and that I'm an actor and that I get to go to cool places and, Golden Globes and all this stuff, that everything is so great and like I'm always happy and my life is set and I get to do this and that and blah blah blah. And like same way I look at like some like Angelina Jolie, who's like my god, I'm like, oh my god, if I was her then blah blah blah, or like if I had this then I would be happy, if I had that, if I could do that. And we're all kind of comparing our insides to other people's outsides, and I keep talking about my mom. She'd be so happy. So I was like, why don't you talk about me? But you know, there was things when I was like, oh, I wish I had her hair, and she'd be like, okay, but with that comes, you know, dealing with her parents, or you know, the whole your life, and no one is perfect. No one has it all. Like Angelina Jolie doesn't have it all. Like Taylor Swift doesn't have it all. You know, and I think it's just a matter of like realizing like every celebrity and actor like once upon a time was just a normal human being, and we're so lucky to become successful in their field that every single person that you see has always been like just another person that has been able to, you know, fulfill what they wanted to do. And so like, why couldn't that be you? Like no one was born with a special gene that made them, you know, whatever. It's because like you work hard and you have a talent and you have drive and ambition, and I just, you know, would have your mantra be why not you? Because I really think everyone is completely capable of doing whatever they want to do.
Christine, how about you?
So for me, I think it would be to just take risks sooner, because I'm realizing now that
That's a good one.
yeah, that I should have, you know, I'm getting older, fine, but I look back and I'm like, I love what I'm doing now, and it's just, you know, I could have done that before and then be even further along, you know, to where I am, or have like all this, you know, greater knowledge. And I think that I was so scared back then to take the leap, and knowing what I know now, I just would have taken it sooner.
Great. And I know we have to wrap soon. I'd be interested to know, because I think it's interesting between having these philosophies of doing things and then going and actually doing them. And I asked you about this. I want to ask you about, you know, for folks here who might be considering, who might have an idea, or might have something they start, or they might see something they don't like and they want to change it. You know, what is your best advice to those people of how to just get started?
Just do it. I mean, again, 2012, I was broke. I just lost this massive race. You know, nobody would pick up the phone and talk to me. And I wasn't a coder, and I had an idea about Girls Who Code. So I literally like went on GoDaddy.com. You know, it was available for $1.99. I bought it, right? Because nobody was talking about coding back then. I, you know, sent an email out to a bunch of friends being like, I'm trying to raise money. You know, I, you know, scrabbled together like, some resources. You know, bought the first program, bought the girls, you know, pizza with my credit card, borrowed a friend's conference room. Like I bootstrapped the whole thing from like start to finish. I had no idea that it would turn out to be this, but there were so many things that I was up against, right? And so I think that too many times we don't just incubate ideas. We often will talk to 100 people, and I promise you, when people tell you it's a bad idea, you probably should go do it. Like it's just, we convince ourselves out of it. So I tell people, just do it, just try it. Worst thing happens, doesn't work out.
For you, Carly, this is a bit of a pivot, but how has the role of Darlene changed you personally?
I mean, it's changed me, like, you know, more so than playing Darlene. It's about being a part of the show, and I guess, you know, almost like the movement of it has changed me a lot. You know, it's made me, it's on an emotional level, to play someone that is so on the surface fearless and untouchable and strong and confident and all of these amazing things, underneath it all really having that she's very damaged and vulnerable and scared, and you know, and being able to allow myself to play her vulnerable like that, you know, has translated a lot into my life too, of allowing myself to be vulnerable and people to see me like that and not just see this kind of untouchable thing. You know, but it's really allowed me, it's opened my eyes to a lot of things, to this whole world. You know, it's opened my life and like a lot of doors to so many amazing things outside of just acting in the entertainment world, like this, and being here and being able to, you know, participate in all these different things. And, you know, again, along with what you were saying, I was always told, like, about trying new food. My mom, oh my God, I'm so annoyed with myself. This is like, oh my God, get over your mom. But would always say, like, just try it. If you don't like it, spit it out. And so everything, I'm like, so whenever a friend's like, oh no, I don't want to try that, it's like, just try it. If you don't like it, spit it out. You know, and I just feel like that's kind of the same thing.
It's a
Of
great
like,
motto.
just try it. But yeah, I mean, it's allowed me to grow as a human, as an actor a lot, and has, you know, just made me so grateful for what I have, and none of it has come easy, you know, and working in these past 5 months doing the show, I've never worked harder in my life in these past 5 months than I have, like, accumulatively in my life. You guys get it. You know, and it's really taught me work ethic and working hard and being exhausted and doing it anyway, and not wanting to do something and doing it anyway, and, you know, suiting up and showing up and just giving something my all that I'm passionate about.
And we got to wrap, but I just want to end with you, Christina. And because the theme of this is changing the ratio and how women are kind of shaping their fields, what change do you want to see in tech when it comes to women, apart from just like better wearables that we actually want to wear?
Yeah, I mean, this goes along with a lot of what you're working on. It's just we need more women, both on the engineering side, and even, like, sometimes I'll say this, if you want to be an entrepreneur but you don't want to be a coder, just learn the language. You don't need to learn how to code, but just learn the language. So take a coding class so you can speak to engineers. Like, when I first started Ringly, I knew nothing about electronics, but I took a circuit board making class because I wanted to be able to speak to engineers and relate to them a little bit more. So I think it's just, you know, whatever you want to do, just go in and try to learn as much as you can, and then be a leader and, you know, find people who can help you do it.
Great. And a quick plug to Reshma, some of these videos. You guys have to watch some of their Girls Who Code videos online. I kid you not, one of the quotes from one is like, I tried to get into coding, but my boobs are so distracting, and I can't code because my long eyelashes make it hard for me to see the screen. So I promise that if you want to really quick, they're not like, well, they're not serious.
Deborah's here, our VP of Marketing Comps, who's one of the producers on these videos, but we, you know, she came up with the whole theme of like why girls can't code. And just ridiculous ideas, like girls can't code because they get their period, or because their boobs are too big, or because their eyelashes are too long. It literally got like, what, 4 million views in like 48 hours? I mean, they blew up. And the best part of it was that, because they're hilarious, but the best part of it is like so many girls were like, what's coding? And like, because they were so funny, it got more girls actually interested in just wanting to know what it was. And so we took a risk with our brand, you know, in doing something that, you know, could, you know, definitely made you feel uncomfortable, and, well, some people uncomfortable. And it was awesome. It's totally worth it.
It's great. Well, I think the good theme is, you know, videos like that, shows like this, you know, entrepreneurs like this are working every day to kind of change that in a funny and kind of badass and fun kind of way as well. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Hey.